Let me tell you something that most people don't want to hear. The strongest minds are not born that way. They are built through the fire of relentless self-discipline, day after day, brick by brick. There's no shortcut, no hack, no fancy app that can substitute for the hard, often boring process of mastering yourself. But once you commit to it, really commit, you become something most people can't even comprehend. You become dangerous because nothing controls you. No impulse, no distraction, no external opinion. You begin to terrify people, not because you're loud or aggressive, but because you're stable, focused, and completely unfazed. See, people are scared of what they don't understand, and they really don't understand someone who shows up every day without needing motivation. That's what discipline gives you. Consistency in the absence of emotion. When others slow down, distracted by feelings or fatigue or whatever excuse they've convinced themselves of, you keep moving. That's terrifying to them, because your consistency exposes their excuses. You want to know what separates the average mind from a terrifying one? It's not raw intelligence. It's the ability to tell yourself no and mean it. It's the ability to delay gratification in a world that's addicted to the now. It's getting up early to sharpen your mind while the rest of the world is sleeping in and negotiating with their alarm clock. It's going to the gym when your body aches, reading when your brain is tired, listening instead of talking, and showing restraint when it's easier to indulge. That kind of discipline is rare, and anything rare gets people's attention. But here's the secret most never realize. Self-discipline isn't about punishment. It's about freedom, real freedom. Because the moment you stop being a slave to your impulses, you become the master of your time, your energy, your focus. You can aim all of that power at anything you want, a business, a body, a vision, and outwork anyone in your way, not because you're better, but because you built the muscle to stay the course when others fold. The world respects edge. The world fears edge. But you don't get that edge by being soft with yourself. You don't build it by letting comfort dictate your decisions. You build it by making small promises to yourself and keeping them. You build it every time you want to skip the work but show up anyway. Every time you want to react but stay composed. Every time you want to quit but dig deeper. That's when your mind grows into something solid, sharp, and completely untouched. And understand this: the more disciplined you become, the less you need validation. You stop explaining yourself. You stop trying to prove anything. You just do the work over and over with quiet intensity. That silence unnerves people. They don't know what's coming next because they can't read you. They can't predict your moves. They can't compete with your pace. That mystery, that consistency, that power you exude without having to say a word, that's what scares them. Not because you're dangerous, but because they've never seen someone that dialed in. There's no glamour in the early stages. Discipline is lonely, it's repetitive, it's full of sacrifice, but it turns you into someone most people will never become. The kind of person whose name gets brought up in rooms they're not in. The kind of person whose presence shifts the energy simply because of how they carry themselves. You're not chasing clout. You're not desperate for attention. You don't need approval. You're doing it for something deeper, something personal. And when you move like that, people notice. But the most important thing to understand is this: no one is coming to force discipline on you. No mentor, no coach, no guru can make you do the work. It's on you. You have to choose discomfort over ease, repetition over novelty, structure over chaos. And you have to do it so often that it stops being a decision and becomes who you are. That's when you stop playing checkers and start playing chess, not just with your time, but with your entire life. Every move intentional, every habit weaponized, every choice made with a long game in mind. That level of self-command doesn't just intimidate people, it inspires them too. Because deep down, Everyone wishes they had that kind of control. But most won't earn it. You can. You just have to want it bad enough to stop negotiating with your potential. Build the kind of discipline that doesn't flinch. Most people are walking around thinking they're thinking, but they're not. They're reacting, repeating, recycling secondhand opinions and calling them insight. And if you want to build a mind so strong it terrifies people, you need to step far beyond that. You need to sharpen your ability to think, to cut through illusion, to question everything, especially the ideas you were taught to accept without challenge. Because a strong mind isn't just disciplined, it's dangerous in its clarity. It doesn't get swayed by noise. It doesn't fall for surface-level logic. It asks the right questions, and it doesn't stop until it gets real answers. There's a quiet power in being the person in the room who isn't buying the story. Everyone else nods, agrees, claps at the right moments. But you're listening differently. You're not looking to conform. You're looking for cracks. You're tracking the logic, watching the pattern, feeling the intention underneath the words. And when something doesn't line up, you don't just let it slide. You dig, you press. That kind of mind, it scares people because they can't manipulate you, they can't distract you. You don't fall for the smoke and mirrors, you're locked in. To build that kind of mental weaponry, you have to become obsessed with truth. Not convenience, not popularity, not the narrative that makes you feel good, but truth. That means training your mind to slow down, to observe before reacting, to analyze your thoughts instead of just expressing them. Most people hear something and immediately jump to judgment. You don't. You take it apart. You ask, why do I believe this? Who benefits if I accept this? What's the bigger game being played here? That kind of thinking isn't common, and when you show it, it unsettles people. Why? Because it exposes their autopilot. Your clarity becomes a mirror to their confusion, and people don't like mirrors that reveal too much. A strong mind isn't afraid to be wrong. It's not addicted to being right. It's focused on learning, evolving, cutting deeper into understanding. That takes humility, but also courage. It takes strength to challenge beliefs you've held for years. It takes maturity to admit that maybe the crowd isn't always right, and it takes backbone to stand your ground when your thinking doesn't match what's trending, what's easy, or what makes people comfortable. But that's exactly what makes your mind so powerful. You don't just absorb, you filter. You don't just follow, you investigate. You read between the lines. You sense agendas. You spot emotional bait. You recognize when someone's trying to use fear to control a narrative. You see when someone's appealing to ego rather than reason. And you don't bite. That calm refusal to be mentally manipulated, that unsettles people more than anger ever could. The irony is, once you learn to think critically, everything changes. You become quieter, more observant. You stop arguing just to argue. You stop debating to win. You're not trying to look smart. You're actually becoming smart. You don't chase applause because you know most applause is shallow. You'd rather be respected in silence than celebrated by fools. And that's why your mind becomes something people can't ignore. You'll find that the more you train your mind this way, the less you depend on approval. You stop outsourcing your confidence to other people's opinions. You trust your judgment. You vet your influences. You seek depth over dopamine. You choose reflection over reaction. And when you do speak, people listen. Not because you're loud, but because your words are laced with precision. Because your thoughts carry weight. Because you're not guessing, you know. And here's what's wild. When you truly commit to sharpening your thinking, you become almost immune to manipulation. You stop falling for emotional traps. You recognize the patterns in arguments, in politics, in marketing, in people. You can see when someone's speaking from fear or trying to control through guilt. You start hearing the unsaid, noticing what's missing just as much as what's spoken. Mental sharpness, that's what makes your presence unsettling, because most people are used to operating in fog, and you bring clarity. But understand this, none of this happens by accident. You have to earn it. You have to read what others won't. Study deeply, think slowly, reflect often. You have to train your mind to question the easy answer, to sit with complexity, to live in nuance. That's hard. It takes time, it takes effort, but the reward is priceless, a mind that can't be tricked, sold, or silenced. When you reach that level, your thinking becomes a form of power. You walk into a room and don't need to prove anything, because your presence, your insight, your calm confidence already speaks volumes. People don't know what you'll say next, but they know it's not going to be predictable. That unpredictability, that edge, that's what makes you dangerous. That's what makes you unforgettable. Because while most people are busy trying to be heard, you've mastered how to see. Most people spend their entire lives trying to avoid adversity. They pray for comfort, chase ease, and hope life spares them from too many challenges. But let me tell you something straight. If you want to build a mind so strong it terrifies people, you have to flip that thinking completely on its head. You have to start treating mental adversity the way a fighter treats a heavy bag. Not as something to run from, but as something to train with. Every hit you take, every setback, every insult, every moment of doubt, that's your gym. That's your weight room. That's where your mind gets forged. The truth is, pressure is the only thing that shows you who you really are. Not your plans, not your goals, not your highlight reel. Pressure. What do you do when things go sideways? How do you respond when your name gets dragged? When your efforts don't pay off? When you feel like quitting? That's where your mental strength is either exposed or expanded. That's where the weak look for exits and the strong lean in. And here's the part most people miss. Adversity isn't personal. It's not out to get you. It's out to build you if you let it. Every time life knocks you down, you get to make a decision. Crumble or calibrate. Most people crumble. They get bitter. They blame. They spiral. But you train. You tighten up. You say, all right, let's go again. You don't pretend it didn't hurt. You just refuse to let it define you. You start looking at discomfort like a sharpening stone. Pain becomes information. Struggle becomes feedback. You stop labeling things as bad just because they're hard, and you start seeing them as necessary, even sacred. You begin to understand that mental toughness isn't loud or aggressive. It's not about acting unbothered. It's about how quickly you adapt, how quickly you recover, how you stay focused when everything around you is screaming for your attention. And let me be clear, this isn't some motivational theory, it's real. The most powerful minds I've seen, the ones that scare people with their resolve, are the ones that stopped trying to avoid the storm and decided to walk through it on purpose. Not recklessly, not emotionally, but intentionally, because they knew that every challenge was a new layer of strength. Every loss was teaching them something the win never could. When you reach that level, pain doesn't paralyze you anymore, it sharpens you. You don't just tolerate pressure, you train under it. You seek it out. You ask more of yourself. And when life throws chaos your way, which it always will, you don't panic. You breathe, you observe, you adjust. That kind of composure, that kind of grit, it's rare, and rare things scare people because they don't know how to compete with it. You want to know what terrifies people more than anything? A person who doesn't flinch under pressure. Someone who gets insulted, criticized, underestimated, and just smiles. Someone who fails publicly and comes back sharper. Someone who doesn't crumble when life gets hard, but actually becomes more focused. You build it when your plans fall apart, and you keep moving. when you're exhausted but still show up, when you're doubted but keep betting on yourself. Every time you get up when it would have been easier to stay down, you're reinforcing something deep inside, a kind of self-trust that no one can take from you. That's where the power comes from. Not pretending to be invincible, but knowing that even if you break, you rebuild. And look, let's not pretend this is glamorous. It's not. Training your mind through adversity is messy, lonely, and often misunderstood. People will look at your intensity and say, "Why are you doing all that?" They'll see your discipline and call it obsession. They'll see your calm in chaos and think you're called. That's fine. Let them. You're not building a mind for comfort. You're building a mind for war, for leadership, for legacy. You get to a point where adversity doesn't shrink you anymore. It excites you. It's no longer why me, it's watch me. And that energy, that quiet fire, that unsettles people. Because most are still hoping life gets easier. And you've already decided to get stronger. At that point, you become unshakable. Not because life stops being hard, but because you stop needing it to be easy.